Okay, I want to welcome everybody to our special edition of our normal Wednesday webinar here at TimeSolv. Yes, we all know it is not Wednesday, it is actually Thursday. So as you can see on my screen, hopefully, I've struck through our Wednesday and we are at our special edition Thursday webinar. This is Scott Clayson. I'm the marketing director here at TimeSolv. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our webinar and for your flexibility in the fact that I had to move it to today, Thursday, instead of our normally scheduled second Wednesday of the month. I am going to give another minute or so, let people, excuse me, drop into the webinar here. So I'm going to go on mute here for another minute or so, and then we'll get started. So you do have a chance, as always, to grab a glass of water, lunch, midday breakfast, if you're on the West Coast, whatever it might be. And I'll be back in another minute or so. All right. I am back and we are ready to get started. Once again, welcome to TimeSolv's Wednesday webinar special Thursday edition. This is where we like to show our attendees the various tips and tricks to get the most out of their TimeSolv account. As I mentioned previously, my name is Scott Clayson. I am the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv. And I, again, appreciate everyone's flexibility. Long story is that I thought that I was going to have to drive 2 hours yesterday to have my son vaccinated against COVID-19. That was the closest I could get him an appointment. Was about 2 hours away from where I'm at here in Minneapolis. But as it turns out, over the weekend, so I sent out a notice to all of you all, moving it to Thursday so that I could make that drive and get back. It was going to conflict with our normal webinar time. However, over the weekend, I was able to get my son an appointment that was close here in town. We're doing that tonight, only about 15 minutes away. I decided, you know what, I'm not going to switch it back to Wednesday after already sending out that I'm moving it to Thursday, and we would just keep it here. So again, I do appreciate your flexibility in the fact that I've moved it here. So without further ado, let's get started. Everyone, of course, as we know, is on mute. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A icon that you should see at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. And we will, I'll answer them, you know, as I may not answer them immediately after you ask the question if I'm in the middle of going through something, but I absolutely will get to every question that comes through and answer them to the best of my ability. If it's too technical of a question, I may have to refer you to support, or I will try to find out the answer, and I always do try to include that in a follow-up email that will include a link so that you can watch this webinar again if you'd like. So our topics today, because of the way the calendar worked, we actually have 5 topics, as most of you know who have attended these in the past. We send out a tip of the week email. Generally, it's every Monday. And then this Wednesday webinar is essentially a synopsis of the 4 previous week's topics. And the way the calendar worked, there were actually 5 Mondays between our last Wednesday webinar and the one we're doing this week. So that's why we have 5 topics that we'll cover today. It's a mix of some older features that you may not have been aware of and some new things that just were released within the last 10 days into TimeSolv. So first, we are going to talk about how to enable conflict search if you have the TimeSolv legal product, and how to store related party information in TimeSolv so that you can do a conflict search within the TimeSolv program. Obviously, it's hugely important for law firms to make sure that there are no conflicts in future work that they might have against others that you may have done work from. So nobody likes to have conflicts that they have to recuse themselves from working on matters and so on. Then the second thing we want to show you today is the abbreviations for creating your time and expense entries. Make sure you're aware of what a time saver this can be when creating time and expense entries, and also more importantly, how to use that to create the uniform language for your law firm so there's no ambiguity in how you're describing the work that's being done at your firm. And it really can lead to a much lower number of questions that your clients might have about what they're seeing on an invoice. Those are two features that we've had for quite a long time. This next one, the third one, task code groups, is a new feature that was rolled out relatively recently. And we think it's a great way to not only save time for your timekeepers in creating time entries, but also if you're a firm that uses contract attorneys or your timekeepers don't want to see a lot of tasks, or they only work amongst certain task codes when creating time and expense entries, this is the place where you can create groups and apply that to both timekeepers and to specific clients and matters. So it's I think a great new feature that I hope a lot of you will choose to use. Then fourth is the way that you can add additional emails to receive invoices. We've covered quite often on these Wednesday webinars the topic of how you designate which contact for your clients and matters are going to receive invoices. But we do know there are cases where you may want to, or you've been requested to have an invoice sent to multiple people within the same group or organization. Maybe it's siblings, whatever the case may be. So we'll show you how you can add additional email addresses to receive invoices. And then last, we want to show you a brand new feature that we just rolled out, like I said, last week, and that is under time and expense entry screens. There are some new analytic tools that is part of this overall rolling out of various analytic features that will be coming over the course of this whole year in 2021. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And we're excited about allowing users to see a variety of information, almost reports, if you will, in a graphical format. So we will show you that as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let me move my handy dandy PowerPoint out of the way, and let me go to the time entry screen here. And we'll get started in talking about related parties and conflict search. And the caveat here that I should state up front is this feature is only available for those businesses that are using TimeSolv Legal. Those that are using TimeSolv Pro do not have the ability to do conflict search and related parties. And that's something, TimeSolv Pro is made for non-legal organizations that don't need to do conflict search. So we don't offer that in that product. You also do need, even if you do have TimeSolv Legal, you need to enable and turn on conflict search if you're going to use TimeSolv to conduct conflict searches. So to do that, you first want to head over to Client and down to Settings. Once you're on this general page here, you'll see right underneath the clients and matters information that you can customize an area called conflicts and related parties. And you will need to toggle this on if it's not on already. You can also customize a couple of labels that will appear when you're creating your relationships and creating your related parties. So this is the area where you could customize that. So after you check the box, you want to make sure you hit save down here. And when you do that, you will notice that you should see under your client section here, two new areas appear, one called related parties, the other called conflict search. And again, let me show you. If you turn this off and I hit save, oh, it's still turned on for me. Okay, that's all right. I thought it disappeared actually, but maybe that's just if I'm on TimeSolv Pro, so we won't worry about that. Never mind. Okay, the next thing you want to do is set up the types of relationships that you want to track. This is kind of a handy way to be able to see information about people when you associate them with various clients and matters, just put them in your system. So again, under the client and settings, when you go over here to relationship types tab, this is an area where you can want to designate, probably at a personal, almost title level, the type of relationships that you want to assign to people you'll be tracking in here as related parties. And in this case, I already set up, some common ones that might be used, like you want to have, put in TimeSolv a related party who's a judge or opposing counsel, plaintiffs, servers, whatever the case may be. This is an area where I would use basically titles of people as the relationship type. This next tab right next to it, called related party types, this is more, I would think of this as sort of the entity that you would want to designate. Like, is this an individual that you're designating as a related party? Is it a business? Is it a government? Maybe court would be one related party type, but it would be broader than a specific title is the idea here, okay? So once you have these, the variety of different related party types and relationship types set up, and by the way, you can create new ones right over here with the plus button if you didn't notice that. And the same thing with relationship types. You can set them as many as you'd like. Up here, you can make them active or inactive. If you click on them, it'll pop up a screen where you can make it active or inactive, and you can change the name if you'd like. So when you are ready to start entering related parties, you obviously want to go under here to clients and related parties. And as you can see here, I have a list of related parties already designated. You can click new related party type. I'm going to edit one that already exists. Either way, you're going to come to this screen here where you would enter all of the pertinent information. Under type, this is giving you the designation for those related party types that you created under the client settings. In this case, I had business, government, or individual. And this is, again, whatever you designated here will show up here, and you do need to choose one. This is that custom label that you could have changed if you'd like. Again, it gives you some flexibility in customizing particular labels that will appear here. Any notes that you want to put down, this is probably, a section you will use because you'll want to kind of provide a little bit more background as to who this related party exactly is. And then, of course, here's all the various other information you can fill in about them. You can come in and update it at any time and just hit update. And then the lower part of the screen here is where you want to designate the type of relationship this party has with your clients and matters. So you can come over here and you can see I already have one that exists, but I'll create a new one. You can click on new relationship. It's going to pop up a window and ask, what type of relationship is this? Now, these are built into the TimeSolv system. These are not customizable, but client, adversary, co-party, and other are the types of relationships that you have to choose from. The subtype is the relationship parties that you were able to, that I talked about earlier, that's under client settings that you can elaborate on. So you do have that customization here of saying, okay, this is a other and they are a server, or whatever the case may be. You then need to associate the relationship to any of your existing clients and matters. So if it's going to be at the client level, keep this toggled at client. If it's going to be at the matter level, then toggle it as matter. Either way, then just like any type of search in TimeSolv, if you start typing the name, it'll start finding anything that matches. So in this case, we have a client called Best Buy. If you do it at the matter level specifically, and I start typing Best, it'll show me all of my matters I have with Best Buy. So you want to designate to a specific, generally you'll probably want to designate to a specific matter. You may have to do it to a client. Again, the date that this relationship was created, any custom label that you want to have here, any notes, and then you just, you hit save. And now you can see that Mel Blunt here has two different relationships for two different matters I have. If I don't want to associate a related party to a client and matter anymore, simply check the box of the one you want to remove the relationship for, and come over here and hit select deleted relationships. Hit OK. Wants to make sure that we're sure about this, and now it's gone. Okay, so when it comes time to actually doing the conflict search, where, again, this is especially true for clients or firms that have, 5, 6, 7 staff members, they need to, and whenever there's new business or something new coming in, they want to do that conflict search to see if somebody else at the firm has already dealt with this person. So in this case, yes, you could type in, let me just start from ground zero here because I was already populated. I can search you containing any words like what you enter, contains all the words that you enter, contains the phrase, or starts with. So in this case, I'm going to start with a person, just Mel. And when I hit search, it's going to show me that there is one related party, Mel Blunt, that meets that criteria. And here's the relationship that we have. You could do that for any person that you have here. Let's say Landry. He's a contact of mine. It shows me I have a client called Landry and Company. I have one contact, Tom Landry. And I see I do have a Franco Harris has a relationship with Landry and Company. And it shows me the information here. If you want to search for the relationships that you have set up for each individual client or matter, you can do that when you're looking at your clients and matters. So if I go to Amir as my client here, there's a tab called relationships. And this would show me all of the relationships. If you notice, I have a matter relationship for a specific matter called deed filing for Smith Jones. It's a co-party, so it shows me I have a relationship here. And same thing, if I go to the matter level, so I'm under Amir as my client, deed filing is the matter that I'm working on. I have that same relationship tab as at the client level. And you can see I have Smith Jones, I can click on them. It's gonna take me to that related party type where I can do edits, see more information. So there's a couple of ways you can search for related parties, either at the specific client and matter that you're working on to see if anybody's associated a related party with that client and matter, or you go under conflict search right here and do the search. Generally, this is where you're going to be searching for a person to see if they already exist in TimeSolv. Somebody else at your firm has already entered them as a related party and created the relationship with the appropriate client and matter that you already have in your system. And again, you may not have this yet. I realized I remembered if I hit save here and I uncheck that conflict and related party search, if I log out now and log back in, now you'll notice I don't have under my clients section here, I don't have related parties or conflict search. I need to come into my settings. You may see this now. And again, if you have TimeSolv Legal, you'll see this area here. I'll check this box. I'll hit save. And you do need to log in and log out to make that appear under the client section. So again, I just logged out. Let's log back in. And there it is back, related parties and conflict search. Good question just came in for somebody who's just starting new with TimeSolv. How do we get in the process of adding related parties from matters converted to TimeSolv for us? I believe if you go under account and import export, you can import in related parties. That's one of the options. So if you notice related party, if you select that, you can download an Excel file where you can import in all of your related parties. I would suggest that you work with your account manager, your success manager that's helping you convert to TimeSolv, and they can assist you through this process. But yes, there is a way where in mass, you can import in your existing related parties you have from your old system and associate them with the clients and matters that have also been imported into TimeSolv. Good question. Yeah, that would be a bummer to have to, associate all those related parties one at a time again, especially if you have hundreds of clients and matters and hundreds of related parties that you need to associate. So we do allow you to import that into the system. Any other questions about related parties and conflict search? Okay, great. As you think of them, type them, and I'll get to these questions as at a natural break point. So our next topic today is to talk about using and leveraging the power of our abbreviations when creating your time and expense entries. So when you're on the time entry screen, an area that I'm sure most of you are very, very familiar with, you spend a lot of time here. When you're creating a description for the time entry, you've probably always noticed over here, this little page icon. When you hover over it, it is going to show you the abbreviations that have been created in your TimeSolv account. And this shows you the entire phrase that is been set up and the actual abbreviation you can use to enter that in the description field. So in this case, for example, if I want to use the phrase, come on, there we go. Discovery interview with client to determine size and scope of the matter. Instead of typing that, all I have to do is type DSC and then a space, and you can have multiple abbreviations for a description, or you can do the enter as well. And that will of course bring you down to another cursor. So there's two ways to expand the abbreviation. You put in the 2, 3, whatever digit code you've created, the shortcut, if you will, and then hit space or return. So what's the point here of creating abbreviations like this? Well, the obvious one is it makes it much faster in creating time entries describing time entries that you do quite frequently and that people at your firm do quite frequently. I mean, I think a good example is that, discovery interview with client to determine, I mean, how often is that a time entry being created by your firm? Could be dozens and dozens per month, who knows? Whatever the case may be. So it makes it fast and easy for creating time entries. It's part of, I've always said, that you take the 10-second challenge. Between the ability to find a client and matter by simply typing, B1100, and the ability to use abbreviations, you should be able to create a time entry in TimeSolv in 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Nobody likes creating time entries, but using some of these fast tools like the abbreviations, you can create your time entries quickly. The good news is these abbreviations carry forward into our mobile app, carry forward into our integration with Office 365. So you can create your time and expense entries, and I've covered this in the past, right within your Outlook email or Outlook calendar, as well as our TimeSync app as well that sits on the desktop. So the abbreviations can be used through, essentially there's 4 ways to create time entries and expense entries in TimeSolv. What you're looking at now in a browser, on our mobile app, on your phone, Android or Apple phone, in Outlook, either in email or your calendar, and our TimeSync application that sits on your desktop. Across all 4 of them, you can use the abbreviations. Okay, so the next question is, well, let me back up and mention one other, I think, huge advantage of the abbreviations is, and I mentioned this at the top, it allows you as a firm to create a uniform language for how you're describing the work you're doing. Because we know that if you have multiple timekeepers working on a specific matter for a specific client, they may describe in a couple of sentences the same work, but in 2 different ways. And when that is placed on an invoice and sent to a client, that can open itself up to confusion on the invoice. Like, well, wait a minute, it says here that lawyer X did a conference call to discuss what I was going to do with the matter, but attorney Y said that it was a call that what happened during a conference to, it's like, was that the same, that sort of, you don't want that ambiguity in describing the work. So this creates that uniform language across your firm that can cut down on questions about what clients are seeing on invoices. Now, the question has come up. I want my own personal abbreviations. How do I do that? Well, let's talk about how we can create our firm-wide abbreviations and then custom abbreviations. So under account over here and settings, you will see a tab called abbreviations. And this is where you can create those phrases and the abbreviation shortcuts. We recommend 2 to 3 letters for the abbreviation itself. So if you want new ones, you just click over here where it says new abbreviation. You have up to 2,000 characters. So if you notice, this is a pretty long paragraph that I have here that can be expanded and used as a time entry description with simply 3 letters, TRT and then space. So that sits at the firm level. These will be available to everybody at the firm to use the abbreviations that are created here. Each individual timekeeper has the ability to create their own personal abbreviations. So again, they can go under account to professionals. They will be able to navigate if they have permissions where they can only see themselves, they'll only have themselves to select. But when you select on the timekeeper, they have their tab called abbreviations. And this is where you can create your personal abbreviations. For convenience sake, it'll show you your firm abbreviations down below here. So you're not having to create, it's easy enough for the timekeeper to see like, oh, this abbreviation already exists at the conference or at the firm level that I wanted. But you could create a new abbreviation here to talk about just court appearance. Let's just say that, if I can spell it, court appearance for litigation. And it's CA for court appearance. Now when I go under time entry, it's already there. And when you hover over here, you can see the abbreviations, both the firm-wide ones and the personal ones will just be blended into one kind of cheat sheet here. I love this pop-up because obviously the more abbreviations you create, it's like, well, how am I going to remember all the abbreviations that are available to me? And the simple answer is just hover over this little page icon and here's your cheat sheet. So you can find the abbreviations that already exist and remember like, oh yeah, that's right. OA was the, when we talked about patent renewal, OA space. So you don't have to try to remember all of this. By the way, I should mention this. This has come up, I think, in some other webinars. People may have noticed I have this, well, it's Grammarly, as you can see, that I use Grammarly. I love Grammarly to help with, it's essentially a spell check within TimeSolv, because if I were to spell, it's going to eventually find this and underline it in red, as you can see, and then I can hover over it and I can replace it. So people have asked, do we have spell check, in TimeSolv? The answer is no, but Grammarly is a way to essentially, it's a free tool, by the way. There's a paid version, but I use the free version. And Grammarly will then appear in every text box across every website that you access and have the ability to enter information. It will essentially do spell check. It'll fix grammar mistakes that you might have and so on. So it's a huge help. Question came, can you print out a list of the abbreviations and save them as a PDF? That's a good question. I don't believe we have a way to do that right now. I've never actually checked. I guess the one thing you could do is on the abbreviations page, or even specifically, actually the best place would be if you have your own personal abbreviations, is go back to that abbreviations tab, which is going to show both your abbreviations and the firm ones, and then just, Control P for print and save it as a PDF instead of printing it out if you want to save it as a PDF. and it's essentially going to print this web page. So there they are. So this would be the way to do it, is just go to print the web page itself here at the personal timekeeper level, and then just save it as a PDF. That'd be the one. That's the way I would do it, at least. I don't believe we have. Let me double check on the export tool, because the things you can export out of TimeSolv, I don't believe you can export out abbreviations. That was the other thing. It would export it out into an Excel file, but it doesn't look like you can. That's a good question. It might be under reports as well. That's a good, somebody put that in as a chat. So I haven't even checked if you can do, if abbreviations are here. Oh yeah, here they are right there. Abbreviations, list of narratives with abbreviations. Well, there you go. It's a report. And there you can generate a PDF. Thank you. The things I learned from our own clients. So this is a way you could actually download it as a PDF. Let's do that. I didn't even know that was something we had as a report. So it's ready. We're going to download it. And let's open it up. And there's the abbreviations. And there's the one specifically for the professional Scott Laidlaw. So there you go. And it shows you whether they're global or specific to a professional. Well, there we go. So there's multiple ways to do it. I love it. Okay. Thank you, Rob, for throwing that at me in the chat. Appreciate it. Okay, any other questions about abbreviations? Okay, the next topic I want to cover is task code groups. And this came to be, it was a request from some firms, and it received a lot of positive feedback of people who thought, yes, this is a good idea, where there are firms where either one of two things came up, where when they want their timekeepers to enter task codes for a specific matter, but they want to limit them to the task codes that they are able to select for one of two reasons. One is they're perhaps, in TimeSolv, we have a large volume of task codes. I mean, we come, especially with TimeSolv Legal, we have all the ABA task codes. And so there's a lot of them. And they didn't want their timekeepers to have to spend the time to weed through all of these. Second is they wanted to limit timekeepers to just a specific group of task codes to select from. So they wouldn't get too far off of what had maybe been arranged. And it could be based on if they created specific task code rates or whatever the case may be. So we enabled the ability to create task code groups and apply them to timekeepers or at the client level, at the matter level. So that depending on, it could be the timekeeper only has access, no matter what client or matter they're working on, they only have access to a certain set of task codes. Or when anybody at the firm selects a specific matter, they're only presented with a specific group of codes. So to set this all up, we want to go under Time and Settings. There is a new tab over here called Task Code Groups. I want to click over there. This is where we create a new task code group. And again, I set it up to just ahead of time where you could set up a task code group by a specific client that you might be working on. Or I chose all the B-level tasks in the ABA task codes for leads billing, let's say. That is another, I know, area that came up with some clients is they were doing leads billing, which has to use the UTMBS codes. And they knew that there were some task codes that got rejected a lot from the various portals that accept leads invoices. So they wanted to eliminate those task codes from being chosen by the timekeepers working on those matters. But you simply come over here and you go to New Task Code Group. You name that group. And then it's going to show you all the available task codes that you have in your TimeSolv account. You can select the ones you want to apply to that group. The great news is you can either control click I'm holding down the control key and selecting the ones that I want. And then I just hit the arrow over here to move them over into the selected group. You can also, if there's a range, like I want to go from B110 to B420. If I hold down the shift key and select B420, it's going to select everything in between, and I can move those over as well. And then I hit save. So once you determine the groups of task codes you want to set up, and if they're all done, and you want to apply them to specific timekeepers, you can do that under account, and then just go to the professional level, select that particular timekeeper, and on the main page you land, on the profile page, you'll see over here in the right column, about halfway down, a task code group row. This is where you can select the task codes that you want them to have available. So no matter what client, no matter what matter they're creating time entries for, they will only be able to have access to the task codes that you set up and applied for them. So for Tony Hill, for example, if I log out as Scott Laidlaw and log in as Tony Hill, and I select clients, see, I only have the task codes. I don't have that whole list of task codes, that long list of 240, I think is what I had. I only have the ones that are assigned to me. And it doesn't matter what matter I select. I'm gonna have those same, only those task codes apply, because that's what I designated for Tony Hill. So that's how you would apply the task code group to for a timekeeper specifically. If you know that there are only certain task codes you want to have available for a particular matter, you would go under clients and matters here. Select, let's do place and closing. And again, over in the right column under general, you'd have task code groups, and I could select the task code groups that are available to me. So for example, the B level tasks. I hit save. And now, for any other time entry as Scott Laidlaw, you see I have all the task codes available. But if I choose that particular matter, place and closing, I only have the B level task codes. That's all that's available to me. So it lends a lot of flexibility, and it allows you to apply and limit the task codes both at the timekeeper level and at the matter level. Again, if we go under time and settings as well here, I should show you this. Back under time, when you're reviewing your task codes, this shows all the task codes. It will show you, there's a new column here called groups, and it will show you what group a particular task code is in. So you can see, for example, some of these B-level ones I have in 3 different task code groups: the B-level tasks, the Best Buy task group, and the 4 webinar group. Again, I have 214 task codes. So you can see where the advantage is here for creating the task code groups. Any questions on that, task code groups? Again, I think it's a great way to create that flexibility you might need when creating time entries. And again, you can even search by, show me just the task codes that are associated with the 4 webinar or for Best Buy. Maybe you need to look at those for whatever reason. Okay, I don't see any questions that have come in. Let's go on to our next topic, adding additional emails to invoices. So we know that if we're going to be emailing our invoices to people, we need email addresses, right? So the way we go about doing that is you can designate at the client level the contacts that you want to have receive an invoice. If there's a different contact, if you have multiple contacts, you can designate one that will receive it as an optional invoice. So I can say, hey, Jeffro Pugh is going to be the optional invoice person. And then Jeff, let's add another person. So let's add a new contact. And let's say it's Joe Cole. And they're the accountant. And they are the ones who should be receiving the invoice. So as I won't go over this in detail, but if you have it set the contact type to optional invoice, they're the ones who will receive the invoice. But Jeffro said to you, hey, look, Joe is my accountant. I want the invoices sent directly to him. However, can I get CC'd when you send the invoice to him so I see that it's been sent, right? So where do we do that? How do we do that? So we can go under invoice settings, and you can do this at the client level or the matter level. And under the invoice setting tab, under the invoice delivery, this is where you can add additional emails. Now, conveniently, if you have other contacts associated with your clients and matters, if you use this plus sign here, it's going to pull up and it's going to show me Jeffro Pugh, and I can go ahead and just select him, and it's going to add that email address. If I need to add even more, somebody else who isn't necessarily a designated contact, I would simply hit a comma, space. You don't have to do space. You could do space, doesn't matter, and then add any other email address that you want. This is sometimes requested because when you as the firm at TimeSolv sends out an invoice via email, whoever is the designated owner of their TimeSolv account gets CC'd with that invoice. So this email address gets the invoices whenever they're sent out. So that's the only person. So the attorneys themselves, the timekeepers, if you like, hey, I want to see when an invoice gets sent out to my client as well, that's fine. Just again, simply go down, to the particular client and add them in the additional email to invoice. And that's where you can, if you add that attorney's email address right here, they'll get CC'd when an invoice gets sent out. If you don't do it here at the client level or the matter level, you still have one last chance at the draft level of an invoice. So if an invoice has already been drafted, but obviously hasn't been sent yet, let me know if I have any time entries in here that are going to get created. Let's hope so. Yeah, there we go. When I click on the dollar amount here and under narratives, no, sorry, their addresses. Yeah, here we go. That's where you can edit this and change it to have another person receive it. Okay, questions on additional emails? Okay. Well, the last thing I want to show you then, we have about 15 minutes left, got plenty of time, is a new time entry and expense entry analytic screen. So you all may have noticed, those of you with eagle eyes, that sometime last week, I think it was around the 5th or 6th, so just over a week ago, when you came to your time entry screen, there was a new word right next to time entry called analytics. And hopefully you had a chance to click on that and try to figure out, what am I looking at? What is analytics? And this is our latest entry into seeing and getting visibility into the time entries that are created by each staff member. So a lot of information that is being viewed here. By default, when you click on that analytics link, it's going to bring in your as the staff member logged in, your analytics for time entries. The date range by default is going to be this month. You can click on it and you have options to show me the information for just today, this week, last month, this quarter, last quarter, so on. You can do a custom date range as well. Then what it's going to show you is the number of hours that have been, for time entries that have been created so far this month, what the average billing rate is, how much of that is, so basically it's taking the average rate times it by the hours. And this is how much has been worked, how much has been billed or unbilled. So you can see that the $1,225.50 that I've worked so far has not been billed at all. It's still unbilled time. So if we go to like this year so far, you can see that I have billed out $138,000, but I still have $4,900 worth of time entries that have not been placed on an invoice yet and sent out to a client. You can see what my average billing rate is for the year to date. This will show you then billable versus non-billable. So you can see I have 9 hours of non-billable time so far this year. This will show you your target billable hours, and I'll show you where you set that target billable hours in just a second, versus the actual hours that you've worked and the actual billable hours. Now, I just discovered this from playing with it earlier. I didn't realize we even had this, but if I don't want to see that target billable hours on the graph, I just simply click on it and it goes away. If I want to see just the total hours, then I can see that, or I can see nothing. You can also toggle here and click amount. And this will show you I don't have a target billable amount that I've set. You can see that's why it's down here. But you can see now, here's the collected amount. I've collected this much money so far this year. Here's the actual billable amount. It'll show me my top 5 clients by hours or amount. It will show me down here in this next row, your billable hours versus your total hours that you created. It shows you last year versus the current year. You can turn off last year if you want. You can turn off this year if you want. And it'll show you what's been actually invoiced. Now, to set that target billable hours goal, it's in a different location, unfortunately, right now. And we're working to have this where you could designate this right here. But if you go into your dashboard settings, and you go to targets and permissions, this is where you can set the target hours goal for each of your employees and the date range. If you don't want to see specific cards, if you will, then you can remove them by just hitting remove, or you can rename them as well. And once you remove them, you have the ability to put them back on if you'd like. Expense entries, I don't have a lot of expense entries created in my TimeSolv account, but it will show you similar information. And let me do kind of maybe a custom range and go back like a couple of years. Show me something, hopefully. Oh, looks like it didn't apply. It's because I have to click on custom. So this will show you again, billable, non-billable expense entries. The amount by expense code is kind of like a heat map, not a heat map, but you can show you I have a large volume under out-of-town travel and copying and much less under online research, only $25. So it sort of shows you at a quick visual look the majority of your expenses by code, top clients, and so on. Same thing, total billable and invoiced. This is really, really, really the tip of the iceberg in our analytics. We want feedback from people. We did work with several firms that were part of the building of this product of our analytics, and we plan on building much more analytics tools available that will be under the dashboard. We'll eventually be, I think, creating reports that can be generated in a visual fashion like this. We will allow you to, right now, it's just this time entries by specific timekeeper. I know I just saw yesterday, and this will be definitely happening in Q2 here, under the dashboard, a much more robust dashboard that will show you your utilization rate across the firm, your realization rate, your collection rate, along with other information. You'll be able to do it at the firm level, and eventually, but for each individual client, you'll be able to see a lot of information about, what is your collection rate for them, and so on, how much you billed, how much they paid you, all of that sort of stuff in graphical format. We're very excited about this. Our dev team spent a lot of time working on how to build this out with a new tool that has been incorporated into TimeSolv. So I think now that they've been able to create these, they'll be able to do the other iterations that we see coming down in the rest of 2021, hopefully quicker. I highly recommend that if you have feedback on this, to please take the time and let us know. And I will show you just briefly. I've mentioned this before at the end of every webinar, but I will put this in the chat as well. Our suggestions portal here that is viewed every day by our product managers. So you go to timesolv.ideas.aha.io. You can add new suggestions. You can search for existing suggestions because somebody may have already suggested something that you came here for. And then you can upvote on, the various, like this past due balance invoice has gotten 9 upvotes. So that probably might bubble up to the top. So again, let me put that in the chat to all of you. So timesolv.ideas.aha.io. Any questions about this time entry and expense entry analytics? The views, based on the permissions that are already in place, will limit the views for people. So for example, if you don't have the ability to create billable or unbillable time entries, you won't necessarily see that breakdown here. If you only have permission to see your own time entries, you'll only have the ability to select yourself here. You won't see a lot of the stuff up here. So your permissions that are already in place will designate how much of this information will be seen by each timekeeper. Okay, questions as we can wrap up here. There's a question as an administrator, how would I view this for timekeepers? If you're an administrator, then you can see all your staff members. So when you come under time entry and go to analytics right here under staff member, you should be able to see every staff member and choose the one you want to view information on. And I know that there are support people who are admins, so they don't have their own time that they've entered and can view, but as an admin, you should be able to see everyone's and enter time for anybody else. So again, you should be able to go into analytics and just select the staff member that you want to view information on. Okay, well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We are coming up at the top of the hour. Again, this has been recorded, and as soon as I get this video processes and I get the link sent to me from Zoom, then I will pass it on in an email to everyone who is here. We will get back to our normally scheduled Wednesday webinar, which means the second Wednesday of May, May 12th, will be the next Wednesday webinar. Be sure to register for it. I believe there's a registration link that I sent in the email follow-up here. You can always then go to our, if you go to help.timesolv.com, and if you go under weekly training, even though this isn't weekly, this is where you would go. Here's our Wednesday webinar and where you can register for the Wednesday webinars. You can register for these. You can register for multiple webinars. Hopefully you've noticed that when you did the first time. So if you'd like to register for all of the webinars for the rest of the year, just simply check all the boxes there. It's kind of a convenient thing, and then you'll get the reminder emails and so on. Okay, well, hey, thanks everybody for your time today. Hope you enjoy, hopefully you have nice spring weather wherever you're located. And please feel free, if you have any other questions, you can send me an email, scott.clayson@timesolv.com. you'll get an email follow-up from me, so you can reply to that. And we'll hopefully see you next Wednesday, or excuse me, next month for our Wednesday webinar. So thanks everybody, and have a great rest of